Good afternoon, everyone. Soil CRC board members, our patron, Penny, wherever you are, participants and staff. Please welcome Christine, Diana, Kelly, Rob, Simon and Steve to our hybrid presentation and panel discussion. Cheers. So a quick project background. 3 Soil CRC participants walk into a cafe. An ex-CEO of a South African meatworks, an ex-Hollywood production manager and an ex-marine biologist. All 3 are innovators. One doesn't realise it yet. They have just spent the past 2 days at the 2023 conference listening and learning about the fantastic work that's going on in the CRC. During the conference meeting time, they have also been intensively workshopping innovation strategies with farming systems groups to build their capacity to place each group's relevant R&D into an innovation pipeline. Over a final coffee before catching a taxi to the airport, the 3 innovators have an epiphany. What if all the R&D from the Soil CRC went into a farming systems group's innovation pipeline? What would come out? On the other side of the conference and from the other side of the country, this side of the country, another Program 1 project led by a farming systems group and a Soil CRC board member was busily working on extension programs and how best to deliver them. And yet another project, Program 1 project, was busily developing a framework to assess a wide range of economic and social impacts of agriculture with 3 universities. Program 1 is a team and a well-led inclusive one. So it didn't take us very long to realise that what would come out of the pipeline was Soil CRC R&D that could be categorised into general awareness, extension or commercial application. And that we could not only build on the awareness, extension and commercial application by filtering the R&D, but moreover document the process to create a framework to accelerate the adoption of R&D outputs. Therefore, we thank you all for the opportunity to present our project, but primarily to Catherine, who brought all this together, and for Michael for going along with it. Slides. Oh. All good? The Accelerated project has 4 distinct work packages working in parallel over 2.5 years to achieve an overarching cohesive framework. Each package is led by a farming systems group and supported by university researchers. Work package 1 will develop and validate an accelerated adoption framework that consists of 3 main elements. Work package 2 will filter and explore soil CRC project outputs, assessing them for their inherent adoptability and appropriate method of extension delivery. And work package 3 will utilise an incubator style process for accelerating novel research outputs towards practical adoption and perhaps commercialisation, while work package 4 will create modern effective extension pathways for innovation that is ready for the end user, i.e. farmer adoption. For those of you like me that appreciate the picture form, this is a graphical illustration of the framework. So why are we here today? The following discussion hopes to provide insights into our methodology, key work completed so far, and primarily our farmer filter. And we encourage you to think about how this research could be applied in your own work and welcome your feedback and discussion on the boat later tonight. So a lot of work's gone into this, and the first step was of enabling farmer perspectives. So I'm going to hand over to Simon from the West Midlands Group to tell us about the filtering process and the mechanisms. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Again, the running joke is this is the 3rd time I get to stand up and talk on my birthday. So, look, I haven't prepared notes and stuff for this because it's a panel kind of session, but what obviously what I've been asked to do and from Bret is just to explain the amount of work that's gone into this first portion of this project. And so that's the filtering process in and of itself. And so the filtering mechanisms basically what I'm calling my summer of 25 was getting 57 project outputs from Felicity at the Felicity and Olivia that they put together, which gave me an outline of up to September, I think, 2024. These are the 57 projects that have got kind of enough detail in the background already, including a project outline, and a final report and a fact sheet completed already that we can utilise to put through a filtering process with our grower groups that are associated. And so what it looked like for me straight away is we have a whole bunch of information in final report format and in outline format and in science and research jargon, to be entirely honest with a lot of it. And if we're going to ask our farming systems groups to take 57 projects and filter them through their farmers and through their networks, there needs to be able to bring this down and consolidate it into some pretty simple outlines. And so what I worked on over quite a period of time in the summer of 25 was collecting that information from obviously Olivia and the Soil CRC, and then utilising the Soil CRC website and the outcomes that are there, as well as going through the final projects, and then at the same time utilising websites that had information from those, so whether it's universities or any kind of social media, any kind of other communication stuff that's come out from these projects, and then bringing those together into a single outline that I could fit in yay big on a page, but most importantly with a focus on what the implications of that work meant for farmers and what the implication meant for extension practitioners and communicators. And so I went through and pulled all that down into a small amount, which is the guidelines, the project summaries document. So the project summaries document is what I sent out first. Now, another passion of mine is accessibility. And so at the same time, I thought, I can't just give a 57 pieces of information to these guys and expect them to go out and talk to their farmers and filter them. And so what I also did was they're going to have different ways of going about how they do this, and so accessibility-wise, I also went ahead and made it into a digital format on SurveyMonkey. I made some PowerPoints just in case they wanted to deliver it in PowerPoint format. We did written answer sheets just in case you wanted to do it as a group and dot down answer sheets. And so it was making sure that there were no friction points or as little friction points as possible in this process of getting these 57 outputs to these farmer groups and to get them filtered by their farming systems and by their farmers. And so this is what it looked like. We started with project meetings with myself, Christine and Brett, and then we rolled through, the projects were summarised, the filtering guidelines were completed for the farming systems groups. They went through and chose a different format or a different way of the filtering process. That was defined, and then we had process diaries set up in the background via Airtable, by digital format, where they could answer their questions about the process, the filtering process. And so that is an iterative kind of cycle. That's about as much as I've got about the filtering setup. So I think I'll pass over now. No worries.
Thanks, Simon. No two farming systems groups are the same. So how did each group utilise all of this information and the information package? And how did they do their filtering approach? So we'll start with the panel. Rob, would you like to tell us what you did, why, and what worked, and maybe what you do differently?
First, I'd like to acknowledge Simon and his summer of 25. Like, seriously, it was an incredible amount of work, and what it did was make our job easy. So, yeah, thank you very much, mate. So we actually used the PowerPoint summary that you provided, and we had a group from work, and we've got a fairly diverse bunch of staff, including people from farming families and people who are farmers themselves. We've got some very different thinking styles. So I thought the best way to do this was to come to it by consensus. And that's actually how our board of directors work. We don't have a voting process. It's by consensus. Every decision needs to be agreed. And so we followed that through to the operational level. And it worked really well. And because we had some diverse views in the room, sometimes we had some robust discussion, but I said at the start, let's not overthink it. And we got through the process fairly efficiently in a few hours, getting through those 57 projects and incentivising it with a good lunch after it. So, it actually worked really, really well. We could quickly read Simon's summary, go around the table, ask a few pertinent questions, and then we'd come up with a adoption ready, general interest, or ready for commercial. So it worked really well, and I don't think that we would do anything differently. Fantastic. So using PowerPoint summaries and then entering it straight into SurveyMonkey via consensus.
Yep, that's great. Passing on to Diana. How did Central West approach the task, and what did you find?
Well, I'm a little less consensus based, so I decided everyone had to just fill out the whole 57 questions separately. So I spoke to a number of growers, agronomists and some stakeholders, and we emailed information and I spoke to them over the phone. I filled it out first just to make sure it was doable and what it was like. And actually going through that, I did have a hallelujah moment where I thought this is absolutely amazing to be able to distill that, a whole CRC projects, and give our growers access to what they want to see and even introduce them to new projects they wouldn't have even thought about. So that was fantastic. The other thing that was really good, nobody had too many problems filling it out. I think everybody filled them out at once, so often it was about an hour and a half. I did warn everybody it might take some time. A couple of people stopped during the process and filled the rest of it out next day. Having a list of suggested answers was really good, and I think that was our feedback. If you could have some drop-down boxes just to keep it going along. But it was a really interesting. It was fantastic. I applaud you all for pulling it together.
Fantastic. Thanks, Diana. There's certainly a lesson for all of us there in ensuring the involvement of the end user in R&D. Kelly, BCG took a different approach. What did you do and what did BCG learn from the process?
Yeah, so disclaimer first, I've got my notes page because I wasn't the one that did the work. So I have to relay the messages from our team who did it. But we actually took a two-tier approach or a two-stage approach. We did a pre-filter with our team itself. So some of our more experienced staff members went through. They work quite closely with our advisory committees, and so they've got a good understanding of our farmer base and what their key questions and needs are. So they went through the whole list of projects and shortlisted things. And that was on the basis of what are the needs of our growers, what value proposition does the particular project offer, and how adoptable is it. One thing that they did mention, which is a bit similar to what was said before, is we couldn't overthink that process. You could get bogged down the detail rather than just looking at the higher level outcomes. So we just had to keep it focused on an extension lens. Can we communicate this material and can we do it well? And the adoption lens, are the end users likely to engage in what we're trying to do and implement some or all of the aspects on their farm? And then that allowed us to split things into a time frame as well. What things are ready for now, and what things are, just not quite ready yet, but they will be in the future. The second stage of that was then to take the shortlisted projects and discuss them with a group of growers. We did this over 2 sessions with a handful of growers each, which was facilitated, guided, and it led to a lot of robust discussion too, because obviously everyone's got different opinions on what applies to them and what might be something they're interested in. That meant that some people would say, this is not for me, and someone else would say, actually, I think, given this, that and something else, it could be something that I could look at. So I guess in that sense, what is the risk of the process that we used? There's a risk that we filtered something out that maybe they were interested in, but we also know how hard it is to get growers to engage in things like surveys and that, and you usually get your top performers, your early adopters that will address some of these things and don't get a good representation of the broader population. So our process worked for how our business structure works.
Fantastic. Fantastic to see all the different approaches too from the same information package. So well done, everyone. Back to the slides, guys. And to the results. So which category the outputs were classified. So the projects were initially categorised based on the majority consensus of respondent classifications, with the majority of projects assessed as suitable for general awareness. These projects often involved early stage frameworks, knowledge building or foundational science projects. About 1/3, as you can see, were considered ready for extension, suggesting practical applicability with regional support, and a smaller set showed the potential for innovation incubation, usually involving novel products or technologies with commercial potential. However,
Might be getting ice cream over here.
Oh, yep. However, to assess consensus, the following thresholds were applied. These thresholds reflect best practices in participatory research, extension evaluation and Delphi-based methods, and a 70% agreement level is widely recognised in expert-driven processes and aligns with approaches used by the GRDC and other applied agricultural research organisations. So you can see it lowered the amount of projects that were thrown into each category. So at this stage, I'd like to bring in our project special guest, Felicity. Where's Felicity? There you are. Felicity, how has this work assisted the Soil CRC adoption plan, if at all?
Yeah, thanks, Brett. It's been fantastic and certainly made my job a whole lot easier. So congratulations, thank you very much. Certainly a priority for the adoption plan, number one, was to determine those projects are ready for adoption and ready for sharing with the wider community, be farmers, agronomists, agribusiness advisors and other researchers. So, with that work being done for those first 57 projects, I look forward to receiving the next 57 projects, thanks Simon, this summer. So, and I've been able to take those summaries that Simon's been able to produce and share it with the rest of the other grower groups and participants from the Soil CRC, which will then inform their decision making around what sort of activities they might like to deliver as part of delivering the implementation plan for adoption and the priority projects that would suit their regions going forward, and having the groups, just about one group in every state, having completed this process, although they might not be exact to their region, at least they've got some guidance in that respect as well. So, and also just for thinking about other opportunities for knowledge sharing, like the GRDC updates and those sort of things, just being able to take those summaries and outputs regarding, importance for farmers and importance for other extension agencies have just been fantastic. And I guess I'd like to know if the other grower groups in the room that weren't part of this project would like to go through that process, I guess, and use the framework that you've developed to do it in their own patch with those 57 or projects, and decide which ones of theirs might be suitable. But that might be, a discussion for on the boat tonight, like you say. So, thanks for the opportunity.
Fantastic. Thanks, Felicity. Christine, I'm assuming that alarm was your student saying, "Where's our lecturer for our 4 o'clock?" You have the ominous task of documenting all of this. So can you please tell us and give us your insights, I suppose, into the process from a notable researcher's perspective?
Thanks for that, Brett. And I guess the fascinating part of this process for me in doing the research side is that we took an action research approach, in that the whole of the team met at conference last year and thrashed out what we might do, how we might do it. A smaller team then got together, Nathan, Brett, Simon and myself. I was there mostly listening, but listening, actively engaging in discussions as needed, because we wanted to develop a process that we could generalise how to get results of long-term collaboration into a format that could be adopted and the results from the CRC accelerate as quickly as possible. A couple of things for me so far in terms of the process: having the whole of the team engaged early, and again yesterday and in subsequent meetings through the last year has been critical, so that everyone comes along on that journey, understands what we're doing and participates in designing. It's been very much a co-design process. The executive team tried to work out where the problems might be, tried to resolve them and come up with a range of solutions. Some of us did a lot more heavy lifting than others, and I can't believe that that's happening again. But I mean, to me, it was about evaluating the process as we went. The process diaries have been really critically important to get feedback from the team of what's working, what's not working, how to improve the process. If we do, again, Felicity, we'll have some improvements on that process. I think it's been really important to have the farming system groups involved in those discussions and working it out. It's also been really important to have the extension team and the innovation team involved in the project and saying where we're going to next, because we've just got through the first stage of the process, and so far so good. Hopefully we'll continue with leaps and bounds, and we'll have a process that, you know, we can use in many other forums. Thanks, Brett.
Cheers. Thanks, Christine. Stephen, at this point, I assume that some of our audience is wondering what happened to that Shark Tank thing Brett was talking about last year all the time. Could you please share some insights, your insights into what the results mean to the Innovation Incubator?
Yeah, thanks. And for those that haven't guessed, Brett was a marine biologist and I was the ex-Hollywood production manager. So the Shark Tank was a way that we could really amplify all the opportunities out of the soils CRC. However, they've done a very good job, I'm sure, with the stewardship of Michael, to protect those projects ready to innovate with IP. So I couldn't get my dirty hands on them to test the desirability, viability or feasibility of the ideas. However, with our lovely farmer groups, they were able to get the real users of all these research projects, and what came out was pretty astounding from my perspective. Basically, 67% of the projects, so I think 38 projects, people, farmers, on-farm professionals, agronomists, stakeholders, identified that these ideas had some commercial benefit. Okay, so it's well above the 5 that have been identified out of research that we're ready to innovate. So that's where I'm really interested in exploring this project further.
Yep, fantastic. So there's a bit more work to be done with regards to the innovation incubation. And just the slides again. Yep. So Michael told me about 3-4 minutes ago we had 10 minutes. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, Stephen, to explain to us what this slide means and why you produced it last night so excitedly.
Well, I mean, as background, I've been in trying to, triangulate industry, academic institutions and future generations into how do we all work together better. So if I look at this funnel, this innovation pipeline, I'm looking at the 38 projects that people had identified had some innovative quality to it and some commercial opportunity. Okay, but it doesn't stop there. Okay, there are 25 other CRCs, okay, that would, and soil CRC is probably the third least funded, have more than 60 projects each that could have commercial opportunities. Then we move on to the GRDC that spends $1 billion in R&D a year, and the MLA. So if we look at that as a whole of $2.6 billion in R&D, I think we could find a potential of 2,100 projects that could fit into the pipeline. Now, knowing that not all ideas get to the launch phase and only 10% do, we got that down to 200, okay? Because once you go through a structured acceleration and innovation process, you double the chance of success. Okay, right now, every idea that people come up with only has a 5% chance of success. We think we can get it to 10%. Now, once we get all these opportunities out into a launch phase, we predict that we could triple, okay, the agri-tech industry in Australia. Is that all right?
Sounds rather exciting to me. I'm sure it does to everyone else. That's fantastic. So, how much time have we got, Michael? 2 minutes? 4 minutes? Okay, so just a quick question that I had for the farming systems groups. Are the results what you expected? Kelly?
Why just start with me?
Reverse order.
Look, I think I had a quick flick through the project summaries and that sort of thing, and I guess like things out of what this CRC has been delivering, some of them are for farmers and some of them are for us or for practitioners. So I think to sort of find that not everything needs to go to the farmer is not a bad thing, because there's different audiences involved in the work that's coming through, or there's different intended outcomes and outputs. So to be able to identify those things that you then put your adoption and extension money into to take to an end user, that I think has a huge amount of value in it. So yeah, you might sit there thinking you want to see more go through, but I think what has come through is the things that have got the biggest chance of being successful.
Yeah, fantastic. Simon, you're not allowed to talk for the rest of the day. Diana, Rob, did you want to add anything to that?
Look, same as Kelly. I think it was really interesting to see that there's a lot of things that I didn't think our farmers would be interested in, that they are. So that was great. They're quite innovative and do think outside the box. On a practical level, I printed off those 57 projects, and they make a bloody good doorstop as well, okay?
All my hard work.
Yeah, nothing super surprising from my end, although there were one or two projects that in our discussions that I, my own personal bias, would have pushed them one way or the other, but through conversation changed my thinking. So I think that's a good win for the process.
I will say something if that's right.
Okay, quickly.
Just from my perspective, one of the interesting things looking at the results afterwards as well is that in the filtering process, the farming systems groups, despite some of the projects not being particularly of interest to their area or relevance, like, for example, calcareous soils for us and maybe sandy soils for southern farming systems, the filtering process and the farmers and farming systems groups were still able to identify those projects that looked like they were ready for extension or that were ready for incubation, no matter what. Like, even that it didn't matter that there was that it wasn't necessarily suitable for their area, they still had enough information in that process to be able to tell this is something that not just for us but other farmers, this is worthwhile pursuing. So I think that was a really important part of it as well, something interesting that came out.
Yeah, fantastic. One final slide, if I may. All right, some key takeaways. We believe the farmer filter works. It needs a little refinement, but it gives a great insight from an end user perspective. The soil CRC filtering process provides a reliable and field-informed view of adoption readiness of soil CRC and other CRC possibly research. With participation from experienced stakeholders across major farming zones, the results offer three things. One, a clearer picture of where the project sits in terms of adoption maturity. Two, a foundation for prioritising extension and translation activities. And three, credible justification for communicating or incubating particular research outputs. The filter has shown and reminded us that the R&D success hinges on being fit for purpose, grounded in trusted relationships and regionally relevant framing, from development and co-design through the research to output. So our future focus for the project and for all researchers in the soil CRC, co-designing extension packages, incubating outputs, including ourselves most likely, as we believe this is a rare transformational process for extension acceleration of research to end users, and see benefits from embedding tools like the Accelerator Framework into RDCs, government and others. But most importantly, continuing an important legacy of the soil CRC by increasing the tangible involvement of the end user in research and development. Thanks.